So, rounding off the current series of OTR's Love TTT, West London VR2 put together a small team for the very last race of the series, virtually made up of Team 1 members who couldn't make the Tuesday night. There's a bot at the end just dropping off, and myself, that's Lee Morrison. I'm not really I'm having some technical issues as we go off here, and I can't really seem to get going, and have to sort of stop pedalling and soft pedaling while I sort something out, and I get locked off the back and find myself Billy No Mates off the back, and the other three go shooting off the front. And the other three are usually in VR1 team. None of them could make the Tuesday night race, and so we basically got part of our VR1 team just racing with 3 people in VR2. Now, it's a very hot night. We've had the heat wave recently in the UK, so nobody was overly cool in this, and I think it wasn't necessarily the strongest team that we might have had from VR1. So somewhere we'd expect a decent result from these 3, but there's only 3 riders, which can have a big effect on these things. So we've got in the lineup today Rafa Nunes, the Ecuadorian, and Stu Thorne from Chalfont, and Lockett from West London, lives up in Harleston. So there's the 3 of them. Now, we're on a very small climb here. Just you notice that Rafa and Stu just pulling away a little bit. Ellen, the Rocket Lockett, is quite a powerful lady, and although you can see that her avatar is on the drops, she's actually got a hand injury, which means she can't actually go down on the drops, and cycles in a very upright position, and still goes faster than most of the guys when we're out riding. She is an absolute phenomenon, and she's strong enough to ride with the guys in these TTs in the top league and hold her own. Stu Thorne, another strong rider. Rafa I've known for a little while and has come a long way since he started cycling, and we're very pleased with him. Lovely guy as well, Ecuadorian, as we say. As we go past some of the little tents that you'll see on the way. Now, this is a highlights video, so you're going to see bits and pieces from here and there, and we're going to particularly, I think, concentrate on some of the hills. Now, if you look at the bottom of the screen here, you'll see that the brown bits are where they're going uphill. And we're about to hit, not the first brownish bit, we're about to hit a hill about 2/5 of the way through. So let's see what happens on this one, and whether the team can stay together. Now, it's quite common in these things, and in fact, if you've ever been out on any club ride of any sort, groups do tend to split up in the hills, because we don't like that pressure on the pedals quite the same as each other, and we all respond differently. Some like to spin, some like to power, and we don't all go at the same speed. So let's see what happens on this one. You see that Rafa, the Ecuadorian, pulling away. It'd be a great story if he was Colombian, not Ecuadorian, wouldn't it? Because we could do comparisons to Nairo Quintana and lots of other top-notch cyclists. Rafa is a top-notch guy though. He's got pulled away though, and Ellen's gone on the front as well, so they've held together on this first little bump quite well, and got through it all. Now, you'll see that the big white blob at the bottom is actually moving up to the browner the early half of the blobs. The big red patch just after the middle, that's going to be the worst climb of the day. So let's see how they fare on climb number 2. I say climb number 2, it's not actually climb number 2, but climb number 2 that we're going to feature in this little video. We're 7.9, nearly 8 kilometres in. You see that the gradient at the top going up to 5%, to over 5% now, and you can see there's a little bit of a split there. Ellen just falling off a little bit. I wouldn't worry too much about that. She's a strong lady. Stu leading the way here, Rafa taking the slipstream. Drafting is good on RGT, and obviously on hills is not quite as good, and Rafa just taking over there as Stuart runs out on a bit of puff towards the top of the hill. 3.7, the gradient's coming down, but it's still there. 2.6, 2% gradient now, going down to 0.7, but Rafa's carved out a bit of a gap there, and he is over 30 metres ahead of Stu now, and 40 metres ahead of Ellen. So they need to get this group back together, and otherwise they're just wasting the wasting the draft effect. So Rafa's got to really sort of soft pedal and let the other guys get on. There's no point going solo in these sorts of races because it's the third person across the line that's times counts. And we can see now the other two, Ellen on the front there. Sorry, Stu. Yes, it is Ellen on the front. Pulling Stu back up to Rafa, and we've got the group back together again in proper time trial mode. So we can carry on, and we've gone over the second worst of the climbs of the day. 10.5 kilometres gone now as we go through the halfway stage. You see the little purple balloon there, and I see we've got another big. We're on the steep descents now. I say steep, it's -4%. I mean, in comparative terms, you can see it's blue on the profile at the bottom. And they're going down this valley, obviously coming up the other side on that big red blob. If you look at the bottom of your screen, the longest sort of hardest bit of climbing they're going to do during the day. Still a negative -1.3% at the moment as we hit the bottom of that valley, and then it's uphill from here. And after that, you see there's 3 more little sort of ramps to go over. And another ramp before the finish. So this middle section is the testing bit of it, and now they're back into positive gradients here, 1.7% as they go up, holding together quite nicely so far. They're about to hit that red patch, and you can see the road winding up in front of them. The gradient's still only 1.8% here, but you can see the little sign on the right telling them that the gradients are coming. The gradient meter at the top now showing 4.1, 4.7%. It's 5.2. It sounds like an auctioneer with the price going up. 5.4. Do I hear any more? And they're getting near the top. 5.3. They're not even near the top of this little section. If you look at the red blob, they're not all the way through it. 4.4. It's sort of kind of staying steady. 3.8% now, but Ellen off the back. Now there's a gap of something like 15 meters back to Ellen. It's not that critical. 5.6%. It ramps up again as they go around this bend. I don't think the gap is that much. I mean, it's sort of 20 meters. It's certainly something that's not going to cost them too much time to regroup, and you can often find that a team can regroup on the descent afterwards. 5% still. I mean, this isn't huge, but at racing speeds it takes its toll. Rafa again, the Ecuadorian, Rafa Nunez, just pulling away, creating a little gap with Stu behind now, 14 meters, and a full 47 meters back to Ellen. So Rafa's going to have to wait for them, but he's got this steep descent. You'll see at the profile at the bottom as he goes over the top, -6% already, and he's straight onto that blue band at the bottom. So he's got a fast descent. When there's this dilemma now. You kind of wait for the others and regroup at the top, or you go to the bottom and just enjoy the descent and regroup later. You're going to have to regroup somewhere, and there is an argument to say you might as well not worry too much about the descent because everybody else can have a sort of free ride down it. But of course there is still a draft effect on a descent, so there is something to be gained by being together. It's down to about 2%. It's up to 2%. I think Raf's come out the other side of it now. So Raf's out the other side of that, and he's actually climbing again up the next bit. As I said, there's 3 sort of small ramps after the big one. You can see Ellen and Stu now behind. They're sort of together now, and it's Ellen the Lockett hauling Stuart back. Stuart taking a turn on the front of the two now, and they're pulling themselves back to Raf. I suspect Rafa's just easing off a little bit. I mean, 3%, doing 26 kph. I suspect he could probably do a little bit more than that, but he's just making sure that the others catch on. 4% now, so it's getting steeper, but the gap is narrowing down now, only 10 meters back to the other two, so they'll be on soon if Raf doesn't push it. 4% gradient though, so it's not an easy chase, and the distance actually holding around 10 meters, so they're probably doing the same speed now. Raf's got over the top of that, so he's now on a negative descent. Will he pull away? They're not far behind. You can see the chase coming. Stu Thorne pulling along there. Ellen are now taking a turn on the front. They're going to catch, so we should get the 3 back together, and it should be neat and tidy for the next 2 little ramps. So there's 3 ramps all together. We're just going to cover the next 2 and then see how they get on, because they do get a little bit tighter. I think each time they're working out how to sort of regroup quite fast. And you can see here this is quite tight. I mean, it's not the line you might see in a professional team time trial, but it doesn't matter too much, and it's not easy to sit on somebody's wheel in the way that it is in real life because of the way things work on these Wahoo RGT courses and all the dynamics of it. But if you can get in a bunch, you'll get some draft saving. If you can get in a line, it's brilliant, but it's very hard to keep it, very hard indeed. Ellen just taking a turn on the front there, pulling the guys along, and they've done 13.3 kilometres now, 7 to go, so just over 20 this course, so they're well into the course. So they go up this 2.8%, 3% climb now. This is the last of the little trio of climbs that follow the big one. There is one more, 4% again. These climbs sort of not really going much above 4, 5, 6% generally, but they're enough to slow down and break up a team. So you know, they have an effect, and it'd be interesting if you watched all the other teams, seeing exactly how fractured they get on each one of these. It's a well-designed course actually, because they're not the most difficult of climbs, but they're enough just to cause some issues in a team time trial. So as we get over the top of that one and the gradient eases off, we've got them all three together, and I think it's fair to say that as these climbs have been going on, they've been getting tighter on each one, staying together better. There was only that big one where Raf got a long way ahead, but he knew to let the others catch up, because they need to stay together. There's only 3 of them, and it's the third person's time that counts. So 6.8 kilometres to go as things stand at the moment, and we move on a little bit to the last of the climbs at 3.7% on this one, and you can see how tight they are, much closer together now. Stu a little bit off the front, but not a lot. Ellen just drifting a little bit there now, but they're getting towards the top and it'll ease. She hasn't lost much ground. This will pull together quite easily as Raf just tucks in on Stu's wheel here. Ellen not far behind now. This is much better than they were doing in the earlier climbs. The gap isn't too much. We're talking about maybe sort of 15 metres back to it. Actually it's elongating a little bit, which surprises me because they've been over the worst of the climb, but I think that does give Ellen an opportunity to pull back and get on. I'm sure she will, and she's a strong rider, mark my words. She's pulling it back now. You can see as they go through those little advertising hoardings that Ellen's getting closer and closer. She'll be back on in a moment, and then the charge for the line comes. 5 metres to go at the moment, and Ellen pulls back on, and the team now have the ride to the finish. So 1 kilometre to go here, and the team just counting down. It's very tempting to go on a big sprint when you're in one of these teams, but remember, if you go charging off the front and leave the other 2 behind, it doesn't quite work. And I get the impression here that Stu has probably got a little bit more in the legs than the other 2. Now, I have to say, Stu did a 300 kilometre ride Friday night. It was an overnight ride, and both Raf and Ellen did a 200 kilometre overnight ride on Saturday. So they've all done long overnight rides over the weekend. So they've all got something in the legs, but Stu seems to be the one that might just have that little bit extra left over from the weekend's exertions. 600 metres to go. Tightly as a team, they need to stay together for all the reasons we've already discussed, as we watch them roll down under 500 metres now and steadily working their way. 43 kph. The gradient doesn't appear to be, I mean, if you look at the bottom, it's green, so it doesn't look very much, and it says plus 0.3 here, but I can honestly say from riding this course, as you get to these last couple hundred metres, there does seem to be a resistance that isn't reflected in the gradient. I mean, I know from riding it myself that I slowed down, and you look at the speed here, they go down to 35 kph when you'd be charging for the line. Alright, there's a little plus 2. It's gone down to 0 now, but it's enough to slow me down, and I think that's what happened to them, and it immediately shoots up to 42 kph as soon as they get over that little bit of gradient, and they go through the finishing line in a time of 32 minutes 35 seconds, which for a 3-man team is more than respectable, and I'm sure they'll be fairly satisfied with that. Well done everybody, and we look forward to the next series of OTR's Love TTT. West London team, this is VR2 signing off the series. See you next time.